For most of the last century, the biggest music in the world came from a few people recording together in a room. Black Sabbath, Metallica, Led Zeppelin. Music made by bands was not the exception. It was central to what popular music was. Look around now and there is barely any band music that is topping the charts. Mostly it's pop stars, their army of executives and a row of dancers, on and off stage. Think about this. In 1965, 94% of Billboard No.1 songs were by bands. By 2023, that number was 0. Think about that. 0. The way music was made for 50 years, slow, deliberate, with people in a room, has almost disappeared. And I'll be honest, coming from a band pedigree to a solo operator, I've seen firsthand how it became economically unstable to be in a band over the last 15 years. Playing instruments live felt completely devalued over the last few years. But under the surface, I'm starting to see evidence that is changing. This video is a story of how we got here and what I think is coming next. Chapter 1. When bands ruled the world. Go back to 1991. The year Metallica's Black Album and Nirvana's Nevermind came out. To make a record back then, you needed a massive room to record every instrument in real time. A huge mic setup for the drums, multiple guitar amps in different rooms for that classic massive guitar sound. All tracked by an engineer who knew how to cut tape, set up the studio, record and run automations in real time. And then this was overseen by a producer to keep the vision of the record in check. Studio time was really expensive. Sometimes several $100s an hour. So bands and engineers had to be really good before they could ever step inside a recording studio. Think about this. Led Zeppelin recorded and mixed their entire first album in about 36 hours of studio time in 1968 for around 1,700 pounds. The consequence of music costing so much to make in terms of money and skill was that there was a very high ceiling on who could ever even get in and make a record. This meant that the number of people making and producing music was relatively very low. It was the right band in the right studio with the right engineer overlooked by the right producer, which made a great record feel like capturing lightning in a bottle. It was an extremely rare feat. It was also extremely hard to fake. So most artists you heard were genuinely high caliber before they ever walked into a recording studio. And the record sounded the way they did because of the way the people actually played. Physical limitations and everything. That pressure cooker, I think, created something special. It also created a monoculture where only a few bands would ever have the opportunity of recording a record inside a record studio and who were financed by the record labels of the time. Which is why the music of the time became so big and so iconic. Every album release was an event. But over the next 30 years, making music became easier and easier. Fixing performances got easier. And while it inspired a whole new way of thinking about music, it completely changed how we heard it and perceived it. Chapter 2. How music producers took over. When computers entered the studio, the difficulty and the skill did not just disappear. The goalposts just shifted. When Pro Tools came out in 1991, the big thing that it gave you was non-destructive audio editing. Think about the undo function or Control Z. Most of us can't even imagine living without it now. Before that, people cut tape by hand, which was an expensive and highly skilled process. And then when Auto-Tune arrived in 1997, vocal imperfections could be fixed. And pop records suddenly came out perfectly tuned and perfectly edited. And slowly that changed what normal people thought good even meant. Perfectly in tune with every human imperfection removed. And records only got more and more perfect every year since. Being good at your work at the time as a music producer meant how tight could you make the record sound and how perfect did it feel. But don't get me wrong, until recently this act of music production, even with a computer, was an extremely tough skill and a completely different one from that of playing an instrument. A good music producer builds every sound themselves. The drums, the bass, the keys, the guitars, the vocal sound, the drops, how the whole thing sounded and felt. Everything is built from that one mind. A good music producer in the computer age had to have the skills of an audio engineer and the ear of a musician. And many accomplished music producers are multi-instrumentalists who could fill an entire band alone. The people who learned this skill became a new kind of expert. Trent Reznor built complex 9 Inch Nails records completely alone. Skrillex created sounds which no one had really heard till that point of time, without any shortcuts and pure ingenuity. Till about 2015, I think being a music producer was still rare, at par with being great at an instrument. Sample packs of sounds which you could sample barely existed. And to get something to sound good, you had to record and sample it yourself. I think of this time as the era of music producers. Bands were no longer needed to make a record. EDM and dance music took over all the pop charts in the early 2010s. And for the first time ever, the music producers were regarded as artists as much as the people who played on the records. This became what we recognize as popular music today. And everyone began to feel that playing things by hand was a thing of yesterday. But little did anyone know that in a few years, you'd need almost no skill at all to create music. Chapter 3. The flood. What started happening around 2015 to 2016 was at some level a good thing. But its side effect devalued recorded music heavily. Two things took off at once. Firstly, learning and knowledge. Knowledge locked inside studios and expensive schools went onto the open internet. YouTube turned every studio secret into a free lesson. Music theory into something you could learn at home. Secondly, the sounds available to music producers. In 2015, a company named Splice allowed you to rent sounds at $10 a month, and 1 million people subscribed in the next 1 year. And that rent-a-sound model changed more in music than we like to admit. Before cheap sample libraries, which are basically folders full of studio-level recorded sounds, making music even via sampling was a lot tougher. Getting licenses for tracks to sample was extremely tough and extremely expensive. And while I don't see the opening of learning and cheap sample libraries as a negative thing, it did produce a huge amount of music which suddenly flooded the market with volume. Suddenly, a lot more people had access to tools they never had before. The result was that millions of people actually got really good at making professional sounding recorded music. Music which sounded studio grade without ever needing to step in one. In fact, some of the biggest songs of the last 10 years were made this way. But there's a catch, and it's simple economics, and it's not anyone's fault. When everyone can learn a hard skill, the price of the skill drops. The skill is the same, but there are just a lot more people who possess it. Think about a carpenter. When everyone can build a decent table, the best carpenter is still the best. But people overall fundamentally pay less for tables. In fact, it's good we got so many people interested in professionally making music. But as the pool of music entering the royalty system got bigger, the amount each piece of music earned went down. This system was already at a breaking point when AI showed up. And that's where I think the story changes once again. Chapter 4. What is rare will always be valuable. AI is the first technology I think in a long time that many people actively hate. Every tech that came before it assisted the creative person. It changed who profits and who could learn the system, but it always required a steep learning curve. A DAW to compose on is not an easy thing to master. Electronic music is not easy to make. And none of the technological improvements fundamentally removed the fact that professional sounding music was still extremely tough to make. AI is the first tool which reverses that. A simple prompt can now make an entire finished sounding track. Let me show you how.
I am a king, you are a frog, frogs are great, kings are better. I am a king, you are a frog, frogs are great, kings are better. I am a king, you are a frog, frogs are great.
In fact, never in the history of man has achieving the result been easier than now. This I feel is an inversion of effort mechanics, the likes of which we've never seen before. Writing some chords and making a simple melody now take longer than putting that idea into Suno and producing a fully finished track. Think about it. Getting a recorded product is now faster than the act of you actually recording it. It just blows my mind. And while many producers are using AI as a part of their workflow, it's also never been easier for bad actors to infiltrate the system. And that's the main frustration I think a lot of us feel now. Streaming is flooded with AI music, and even with big tech trying to crack down on slop, which it self-created. As someone who has always been fascinated by tech and always tried to upgrade my studio workflow, I've dabbled and used AI. It's the first time in my life I've had this, oh I hate this, oh it might be useful, oh I absolutely hate this type of relationship with a piece of technology. And I do feel that the tool is not the problem, but how it's being used and what it's being used for is. Concentrating power, destroying the environment, and undervaluing human labor are not great feats of achievement in my opinion. And as more of us across every job get more and more exposed to AI, everyone started figuring out and noticing AI-isms. And I think it's quietly training people to actively dislike anything that looks polished or feels like AI. And here in the middle of this dystopia we found ourselves in is where I think bands and live analog music might be able to sneak back in. Guitar sales have been going up every year in the last 5-6 years. and more than half of the new buyers are under 40. Vinyl, which was thought to be obsolete, has grown 19 years in a row and has become a billion-dollar industry. People are buying film cameras and printed books again. Talks about third spaces and communities are propping up all over the internet. None of this is cheap and easy, but people are starting to choose it anyway. All led by Gen Z, young people who I think can feel what is lost when all of culture is replaced and all our work is devalued. As the world fills with mass-produced AI output, polished, perfect products stop being rare, and they become the norm. A song with a sick guitar solo is now easier to fake than someone actually playing one sloppily live. Look at even films like Obsession and Backrooms. Indie films made by YouTubers on tiny budgets. There are massive hits, and in the last year I've started to hear live instruments creep back into top 40 songs. This was impossible to come across, let's say 5 years ago, when you knew a track was a hyper-perfect studio record with all the beats programmed and all the vocals tuned to death. And now it's become the imperfections, the raw performances that are becoming the rare thing. Which means that being in a band, which was a norm in the 90s, has gone to becoming something that is rare now. A few years ago, it was seen as the least profitable thing a musician could do. A band was expensive to record, expensive to make sound good, brutal to tour with. So the number of people actively making bands just dropped, which is why bands have become so rare now. And if we know one thing, it's that what makes a thing valuable is how rare it is. So if you're making music with your hands right now and are feeling discouraged by the world around you, I really feel that now is not the time to despair but to double down on your skill. This pre-AI skill of yours is what I think will become valuable in the years to come. Because what is rare is ultimately what is valuable. If you stayed for so long, thank you so much for watching, and please let me know in a comment what type of music are you drawn to these days. If my work speaks to you, please click join below and become a member of the fuzzculture community. It really helps me keep creating these videos. As a musician myself, here's a song I made that I'm really proud of and would love for you to hear. And if you prefer more of these talking head style of videos, here's an essay that I think you will really like. If you liked or felt anything, please leave a comment. I would love to connect with you.